Hello and welcome to Macroeconomics. We're going to do short narrated PowerPoint presentations for each chapter. I'm going to divide each chapter up into 2 or 3 parts to keep the actual PowerPoint presentations a little bit shorter, keep the file sizes smaller, and allow you to watch and listen to the lecture in small pieces. So we're going to go ahead and start with Chapter 1, Economics, the Core Issues. This is going to be a very basic introduction to economics. We're going to really get into the meat of the content, but we need to set the stage first. This is part of Chapter 1. The core issues. The purpose of an economy is to produce goods and services that satisfy people's wants using the limited resources available. We're going to hear that definition over and over again in using slightly different words. And what it basically means is the whole purpose of economics, the idea of economics, the definition of economics is how to use the resources you have. And they're always scarce. We always throw that word scarce in there. How to use the scarce resources we have to satisfy the wants and needs of the people. And in doing that, you create an economy. So economy is a lot more than just unemployment numbers or inflation numbers or money transfer. It's everything included. That's all part of the much bigger picture in which we try to track the flow of money, products, ideas, people, everything. Now, there are 3 core choices that confront every nation, every economy. It goes beyond just nation. And this is the same thing that the state of California will have to deal with, the state of New York will have to deal with. Smaller economies, the economy of Los Angeles will have to deal with this. So it goes beyond just nations. What to produce with our limited resources, how to produce them, and for whom. Resources can be used to produce a lot of different things. And you want to optimize, obviously, how you use those resources. There can be very inefficient means of using a resource, and there can be very efficient means of using a resource. An example might be wood. If you cut down a tree, you can use the wood to do any number of things. You can start a fire or you can build a house. What's going to be the most efficient way to use that wood? Well, using it for firewood to keep you warm might be needed in an emergency situation, but it's not a very economically sound idea because you're going to be consuming that resource. Whereby using it to produce a house, to provide the structure for a house, could really provide a lot of use for that wood over an extended period of time, even hundreds of years if that house were allowed to stand. In that case, you're getting a lot more out of the wood. Next question is, for whom are the goods or services produced? You don't want to produce something that nobody wants. This is often the most important issue in starting a business, is finding your customer, finding your target market. Is there a market for your product? For example, buggy whips. That's the classic example, is buggy whips. Buggy whips were huge in the late 1800s, very early 1900s, because you needed them for your buggies. Well, once cars came along and you didn't need buggies anymore, who were you producing buggy whips for? So what happens to buggy whips? They stopped the production of buggy whips. Another classic example is the typewriter. The typewriter was a major business machine. IBM, International Business Machines, was built around typewriters. Well, once the word processor really became efficient, word processing programs on computers really became efficient, printers started to produce quality output, and this probably would have been in the early 90s, where at that point typewriters just became far less important. They were no longer a big part of our economy, and computers took over, and that's called creative destruction. We're going to talk more about creative destruction later. But who would you be producing typewriters for, where it used to be for everybody? We produced typewriters for, every house needed a couple typewriters. But currently, in the year 2013, typewriters are probably produced for very specific purposes, people who need to type onto existing forms, and even then, that's becoming more and more. So what is the economy? The economy is all of us. The economy is all of us, and everything we do. Almost everything we do involves the transfer of money or production. The very next line says that it is the grand sum of all of our production and consumption activities. It's once again, it's just everything we do. For the United States, it's the collective behavior of, I think we're a little more than 310 million now, but it's a collective behavior of the 310 plus million individuals who participate in it. It's everything we do all put together. And once again, here's the definition of economics. And once again, there's that word scarce. It's the study of how to best allocate scarce resources among competing uses. Different way of saying the same thing, previous slide. So let's talk a little bit about scarcity. This is the lack of enough resources to satisfy all desired uses of those resources. There aren't enough resources available to satisfy all of our desires. Well, obviously, we probably all love to have a huge pile of gold in our living rooms. But, well, for some people that would be a bit of an eyesore, but most of us would love to have that, but gold is scarce. So once that creates its value. If it wasn't scarce, we probably wouldn't want it because it wouldn't be worth anything. But there aren't enough resources to satisfy everything we might want. And we have to pay for those resources. So the more scarce something is, the more we have to pay for it. Oil is a great example. Oil is contrary to what everybody tells us. Oil is really not that scarce. But we also consume a tremendous quantity of oil. We burn it in our cars. It's used for numerous products that are made with petroleum, whether it's the rubber in the soles of your tennis shoes, whether it's any number of personal hygiene products that are out there. Oil is everywhere. Petroleum is absolutely everywhere, and we consume great quantities. Many of you who may commute to work and may use 10 gallons a day in gasoline. That's a lot. That's a lot more than you consume of water. You probably don't consume 10 gallons of water a day. Well, drinking wise, you may use it for other purposes, showering, your lawn, other things. But we consume almost as much oil as water in many households. But we know eventually we're going to run out of oil. But what we do is we price the oil to match the demand, and we price it based on the scarcity of oil. We also price water the same way. Water is very abundant, but at some point, when it comes to pure, clean drinking water, bathing water, we have to put a price on it because there is a level of scarcity. A scarcity of resources limits the amount of goods and services that can be produced. Somebody's wants will have to go unfulfilled. You can't make enough brand new Mercedes-Benzes for everybody. The resources aren't there to produce one for everybody. You can say, well, we have enough metal, we have enough leather for the interior. In this case, the resource would be the production capacity of the Mercedes-Benz factories, the production capacity of the workers, the engineering department, and trying to come up with ways to make enough cars for every single person on Earth. You can't do it as much as they may like to. And if they did, what would the price point be? And not everybody could afford it anyway. So there's always this tension between want, desire, demand, which we're going to talk about shortly, and resources and the scarcity of those resources. So scarcity requires economic choices to be made. The question is, who's going to decide? Well, that takes us to factors of production. These are the resource inputs used in the production of goods and services. And there's really four types when it comes to the factors of production. And all of these lead into scarcity and how rare or how difficult it is to obtain these four types, these four factors of production. First, land. This is all natural resources. This isn't necessarily just the land you walk on, an empty piece of land. It's more than that. This is all natural resources. So this would be the minerals that are needed to make the parts in the computer you're watching this on. This could be the metal in the ground used to make cars. This could be water. This could be anything. All natural resources. Next is labor. These are the skills and the abilities of all humans at work. So this is the manpower. All economic production requires labor. And you don't think of labor as some guy shoveling coal into a furnace. I mean, the old school picture of labor. Labor can be the guy who wrote a computer program that makes work that seems like it's not using any labor actually connected to labor. There is a connection there. Somebody had to work to create a computer program to make us feel as if there's no labor taking place. Capital. These are the goods produced for use in further production. So capital, also included in capital, is money. So it takes money to produce things. You can't open a factory, create a factory without money. And then the products that you actually produce are the capital. And typically in most products, you produce parts of it and then put the parts together to produce the final product. So all of that is capital. I would also include in that in the service industry, this is an old definition. I'm going to step back from the slide here and say this is the traditional macroeconomic approach towards the economy. We've really become a service economy, and we'll talk about this in future lectures. We've really become a service economy, and so these definitions don't fit the service economy quite as well. And I would include within capital much of the service that may take place, and there's a kind of a blurred line between labor and capital in that case. Finally, there's entrepreneurship. Somebody has to have the vision and the drive to create a business, to create a service, to produce a product, the concept and the ability to put it all together and put the land, labor, and capital together and produce a final product, then go out and sell that product and collect the money to build more of the product or to provide more services. So somebody's needed to pull it all together, and that would be the entrepreneur. And so that person is a key part, or that group of people is a key part of the function. Next, opportunity cost. Opportunity cost sounds like a complicated concept, but it's really quite simple. It's when we choose to use a resource to produce one thing, we must give up producing something else with those resources. This trade-off comes with a cost. That's the opportunity cost. It's the value to you of the next most desired good foregone to obtain other higher priority good. Boy, they make that sound so complicated. Think of it this way. You go into, well, I'm going to date myself. You go into the video store and you want to buy a video. I guess we do that all online now. Well, we can do it. Well, instead of going to the video store, we'll say we go to Amazon.com and we are going to go buy a video, and we decide that we are going to buy the latest, I don't even know what film to choose. We're going to buy the newest release, the latest Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Let's just pick that one. We're going to buy a copy of it, and it's $24.99. So we spend $24.99 on the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. The opportunity cost would be the movie that you would buy with that same amount of money or a little bit less. That would have been your second choice. So in order to buy Pirates of the Caribbean, you gave up buying the latest Star Wars Blu-ray disc. That would be your opportunity cost. What you gave up in order to buy what you wanted a little bit more. When you buy that new Corvette, you're giving up that new Mustang that you wanted almost as much. That's the opportunity cost. And it's associated with every decision. I mean, the example given here is if we choose to produce bread, then we cannot produce pizza crust with the same flour. Same idea. When we have a resource, whether it's money or flour, we have a choice on what we're going to do with that. And that choice, what we give up, our second choice, is the opportunity